This programme is brought to you by Big Motoring World, one of the UK's biggest used car supermarkets. For more information and to verify, find out more at bigmotoringworld.co.uk. Let's start with a simple step that you can take today to support your health. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Each week I'll be here with medical guidance that you can count on, practical, honest and rooted in clinical experience. Your health deserves nothing less. Now, this episode's guest is one of the UK's most experienced and respected nutrition therapists. He's a best-selling author, award-winning health writer, TV presenter and consultant who's worked with thousands of clients. Known for his practical and balanced approach, he's helped make nutrition more accessible and informed for over 2 decades. Welcome, Ian Marber.
How are you?
Nice to see you, Ian. I'm well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
You look well.
Thank you.
You keeping fit?
Yeah, generally.
What are you doing to
bad
keep...
for 61.
Not bad at all.
What do I do? Funny enough, pre-lockdown, I used to do a lot of resistance training.
Yeah.
And I
Keeping
looked
those
at myself,
muscles.
I looked at myself in the mirror one day and thought that in my mind I'm 6'3", but I'm not. I'm more like 5'8" and a bit. And although I was quite muscly, I look quite big in clothes, quite stocky. So I decided to not do so much weight training and started doing spin and became a bit obsessed with spin.
Okay.
So now I do both. I do
of
some weight
cardiovascular,
training,
bit of
spin
muscle.
classes,
I think
etc.
that's
2 or
a
3
good
times a
balance.
week. Yep.
Yeah.
I feel like I've reached a happy medium now.
Yeah, because everyone's talking about sarcopenia these days, aren't they? Loss of muscle mass and strength.
Which I never thought I would get because I thought I was immune to aging.
None of us ever do.
And then,
I
got it.
That's it. Diminishing youth catches up with us, and but it's important to do both. Look after the heart and lungs and the strength as well, and the balance, of course.
Mm-hmm. I'm not so good at that. I must say that I do. There are 1 or 2 sort of stretch and balance classes at the gym I go to, and I've been to a couple, and I know I should go to more, but I don't like that feeling I ought to go and do more things because I feel like a lot of my time is taken up already with gym and health and food and cooking, etc.
Well, my wife is a yoga and Pilates instructor, and I have to say I go to the classes and I watch these women half my age, and they're so flexible compared to us men, me in particular.
They do Pilates at my gym, but it's like an add-on. Yeah, and and I'm not mean. Maybe I am a bit mean, but it's one of those things that I'm paying a fortune for a fancy gym in West London, and I think maybe I'd go more. I should do more. I know now. I feel I should do more.
Well, we've talked there about physical health. Nutritional health is your forte.
It is,
and you've been involved in this for all your career. What's the state of the nation's dietary health at the moment?
I think I wish there was one answer. It really depends on who you ask. I think if you ask what I suppose, when I say a wellness warrior, that sounds a little bit dismissive. I don't mean to. But if you ask someone who's younger and really involved in the wellness movement, they'll tell you that it's marvellous and everyone's really interested in clean food, if you like. I don't like that phrase, but it's descriptive. I think we've got 2 definite camps now. We've got the people who are interested in this, becoming more interested, spending more money, more time on their fitness and their wellness. And we've got the people who are not interested for whatever reason, just as valid, not doing it still.
What's the ratio?
I don't know the ratio. I think, again, depends on who you ask. I think when we look at obesity rates in this country, when we look at the amount of the levels in adults, that's going up, not down. And it should be going down when you consider all of the governmental health movements that have been going on. If you look at the tax breaks, if you look at the tax impositions on having extra sugar in products, we should be having a movement in the opposite direction, and we're not.
It must break your heart to read that that the people in the wrong camp are having 60% of their diet with ultra processed foods. Which is so unhealthy.
It is, but I think as I've got older, I've become more of a libertarian. And when I first studied, I was really passionate about people. People should be doing this. And I was pretty dictatorial about it, and maybe that's why I got attention when I was first qualified. And so I'm not knocking it. I think I've changed and matured a bit because there are many reasons. You're not obliged to follow a good diet. There's no legal obligation. And if you don't want to, that's absolutely up to you.
Sure.
And I respect that. And I think that if we look at the amount of ultra-processed foods, it's easy to think of ultra-processed foods as demonizing them 100%. But when we look at the opposite, which is cooking from scratch, when we look at all that entails, we have to remember that processed foods liberated women from cooking, mostly women, not just women, liberated women from having to be in charge of the family's health and food. And processed foods also liberated people to do other things with their time, rather than just doing what some people think that people ought to be doing, which is sitting in the kitchen and just cooking everything from scratch.
Hence the phrase convenience foods.
Yes, and I think that that's been lost. And I think that I'm certainly not supporting ultra-processed foods, because I think within ultra-processed foods there are degrees. And I think that everybody, even the healthiest person, is going to say, "Oh, I didn't have time, and so I just," etc. And we have to understand that some people don't have any time. They're working 2 jobs or 1 job. They have large families, they have commitments, they may be single parents, they may be whatever they want to do. That's valid too. They're not obliged to eat kale.
Well, that's the most non-judgmental comment I've heard.
Did you expect otherwise?
No, but it's refreshing to hear that, because it's wrong to blame people for the choices they make, as long as they're aware of the consequences. And you must be very aware of the health consequences of eating a poor diet all the time, as I am.
I mean, certainly, and I see this all the time as well. And I think that, I am in private practice, so by nature I have people who come for consultations who are putting aside a portion of money. So they tend to be people who have worked in a certain way, have lived a certain life, because a lot of nutrition information isn't easily accessible, and the one where it is easily accessible, social media, you really don't know what you're getting. So I tend to get people, I think years ago, an article in whichever newspaper it was wrote and called it "The Worried Well," which is fine. I mean, I think it was used against me as a slur in those days, but I don't care. But I think that what I've noticed is that a lot of people will come to me, especially men, after an event. So it'll be a family member's had a heart attack, or I've had a routine blood test and my cholesterol is sky high, whatever it may be. So they use this as a reason to make changes. And I think that that's valid as well. And I think that if you're not interested in eating well, and again, you don't have to be, sometimes life isn't necessarily going the way you want it to go, and you're getting solace and pleasure from the foods that you eat more often because you haven't got much time. And I worry that good eating is becoming even more elitist. And I don't know how to make healthy eating more accessible, short of government subsidised.
Well, interesting, because I was just about to ask you. I mean, the government are talking about persuading supermarkets to make healthy options more accessible, cheaper. Do you think that's ever going to happen? I mean, we've probably been talking about that for decades. It's never happened yet.
I think that, it's almost a political thing, isn't it? Because you then get on to what the government should provide. And I think that what are the healthy options? Are they, is that fruit and vegetables and grains and legumes?
Fish?
Because, the cost of proteins is huge these days. So will there be governments subsidised, or at least supermarket subsidised foods like this? And I can't see it, because the supermarkets are a business, they have shareholders. I don't think that should the supermarkets be in control of our health, or is that either the government or us? I mean, these are questions. These are not. I don't have an answer for this.
Well, it's got to be us.
It's got to be us. There's an interesting point there. Is that if you have raised cholesterol and you have a heart attack, no one says, "Well, it's your own fault." You're treated with dignity and care and sympathy and empathy, and you're taught ways to manage your medication and your health after that. If you're overweight, a lot of people who are overweight are still harshly and cruelly judged. I mean, I have so many clients over the years who've said, "Well, my doctor said I need to lose weight," as if they didn't know. You go for a doctor's appointment, and of course, your weight may be a factor, but you still have other issues, and they're told, "Well, you need to lose weight," as if that is going to solve everything. And there are so many factors as to why people don't eat well. So many factors, and I don't necessarily think that cost is the only one.
Sure. You mentioned the cost of protein just now. Do you think that protein supplements are overdone these days?
Yes.
I mean, we hear about it all the time.
They are, and I think that you can't replace the protein in food with protein powders. I mean, you can effectively, because you're just getting the pure amino acids, and therefore, if you use them as a supplement, you're using them in a targeted way. But I mean, you can't have a plate of you can't have a pizza and then have a protein shake and think you've had your protein intake for the day. They do slightly different things. One's a supplement and should be treated as a supplement, not as a replacement. I think that when we look at the cost of proteins, meat, fish, poultry, etc., they are absurd, but understandable given the cost of living. And I don't know that there's an answer to this. I don't know that there is an answer to this. And I can absolutely understand if you have a choice, if you're feeding one person or 5 people, that you have the opportunity of making dinner every night. Not just once or twice a week, but every single night you've got to make your dinner for 4 people, and it's going to cost you either £30 or £10. Now, if you have an elastic budget and you have the time, etc., go for it. But you can understand why people choose the lower protein, higher processed food, carb heavy meals, because you're going to be full afterwards, and you're also going to have spent an amount of money that is manageable. I don't know the way around that.
No. Are you a foodie yourself? I mean, do you cook a lot at home?
There's an interesting thing, isn't it? It's like working in a chocolate factory. The day you start there, you can't wait to sample the freebies and ask if you can take some home. And I think this has happened to me, and I'm not thrilled about it, actually, because I used to be much more of a foodie, much more.
Did you?
25, 30 years ago. I was at home, steaming kale and grating lemon zest on things. And now it also may be a function of age. My tastes have changed, that I want simpler food that's less complicated to cook. Not because I'm lazy. No, I'm not lazy, but because I just want simpler tastes. And, I like grilled things and lots of vegetables. I don't cook anywhere near as much as I used to. I mean, I cook every day, but it'll be a steak or vegetables.
It's interesting what you say about the chocolate factory, because paradoxically, I once worked on an island called Tristan da Cunha. It's the most isolated inhabited island in the South Atlantic, as a single-handed doctor. And one of the 2 ways their economy worked was to package up crayfish tails in the factory there, which was then exported to the United States. So effectively, I could wander down to the factory and get a tray of lobster tails, but within a week of this amazing delicacy, cooked in very different ways, you couldn't bear it. It was like eating rubber.
Yeah,
so
sure.
you couldn't get too much used to the same thing.
When I had the food doctor, the food company and the health, whatever call it, company we started in 1999 when I first qualified, which was really cheeky of me, we had a range of foods. I think there was 70 something in the range, and one of the products we had was some mixed seeds, and they were hugely popular. They had a sort of koji dressing, and they were really, really delicious. And if I went to someone's for dinner or went to meet a journalist or whatever I might do, I'd say, here, take some seeds. Oh, I love these. They're fantastic. To me, after a short amount of time, they no longer were food. They were a product. I mean, if I worked in a company that made pens and I gave you a biro, they had as much nutritional value to me, not value, but interest, as a biro. And I would look at them, and because I was involved in, how many tons we'd bought and what the flavors were and what the package, not so much that was another side of the business, but I was aware of these things. They became a commodity rather than a food. We had convenience foods, ready meals, which were really good. We had, I think, 70-something items in the food range. But the one I absolutely loved and couldn't get enough of, I had to go and buy in the supermarket, which was a yogurt that we got from from somewhere in Belgium. And it was, I don't know what happened to these cows. These were the Prada of cows. They were whatever milk they produced. It was the best yogurt I've ever the best I've ever seen or tasted. And so that was the one thing that I really loved in our range, because the rest, however good they were, it was a product.
It just goes to prove that variety is so important. We talk about a varied, healthy diet, balanced diet. It's so important, not just for taste, but for nutritional balance as well.
It's an interesting point. When whenever I've written books that contain recipes, the recipes that get the least attention are breakfast recipes, because people tend to have the same thing for breakfast every day. Either the same thing, I do, or one of 2 or 3 different things, weekend breakfasts being slightly different. And so I used to think it was not pointless, but a bit of an indulgence to have to come up with 15 recipes for eggs or whatever it may be, because no one's ever going to do it. You have your breakfast, and I'm sure some people do, but we tend to rotate the same breakfast, which makes it more important for variety later on in the day.
And more often than not, people are on eating on the run. If they're having breakfast at all, it's on the run. It's got to be quick. It's got to be convenient.
There's an interesting thing, isn't it, that when we're eating on the run, and we are absolutely justified in making food choices that suit our time, when other people make food choices to suit them, it's very easy to judge those. So I think that, for instance, convenience food is what I eat when it suits me. Rubbish food is what you eat when it suits you. And I think that the two camps that we started to talk about earlier have become more separate. And I think that ultra-processed food has become, of course it's important, and I think it's important that the food industry up their game and improve things. But I also think that there's an awful lot of middle class, and I say this as someone who's deeply middle class judgment there as well, about what other people eat is bad, what I eat is good and justified.
We'll take a short break there. Now, this podcast is brought to you by Big Motoring World, one of the UK's largest used car supermarkets. Big Motoring World checks vehicle pricing regularly to give you their best price guaranteed. And with their new finance package, you can get a rate as low as 9.9% APR, 11.9% APR representative. With a wide choice of vehicles and a focus on customer service, Big Motoring World supports drivers through each step of the process. Their stated aim is to be, in their words, big on what matters to you. Search bigmotoringworld.co.uk to verify and to find your nearest store. That's bigmotoringworld.co.uk. Ian, what first took you into nutrition and science?
I used to work for a property investment company, and it was lucrative but soulless. And it was buying and selling commercial property. So it was shops and things. I used to find myself on the motorway going to look at a row of shops in Hull. And I spent most of the time in the car by myself eating crap sandwiches. And I hated it. I mean, I didn't hate it. That's not fair. It just was dull. I had a few health issues and was interested in food and nutrition. And I wanted to learn more about it. And it had never crossed my mind that this might be something I could study and become a career. I took a leap, went and studied, and I had no idea where this would lead to, and I certainly didn't plan for any big success or visibility, and I was very ill prepared for it in many ways because it's not. I don't know about you, but I'm sure you didn't qualify as a doctor. Think I can't wait to be on TV.
No,
and
didn't cross my mind.
No, and I'd always been interested in literature. I didn't know I could write. Turns out maybe I can, and I just wanted to write, and so I became. I wrote my first book, and then found myself on GMTV being interviewed when the book came out, and had no idea what to do, and all I did was copy what I'd seen other people do on television for years.
Okay, but do it well.
Well, thank you. I did. My aim was to be a good guest.
Well, yeah, certainly
well,
well,
so that they ask you back again. I always think that, I used to worry as soon as I saw that red light on the camera that I developed some sort of nutritional Tourette's and say the F word live on TV or something.
Now, you say that you had some health issues. Were any of them related to what you thought you might be eating?
Celiac.
Okay.
I had terrible bloating, a terrible discomfort, and I was diagnosed with celiac in 1996. It's really mild.
Don't tell me it was misdiagnosed as irritable bowel to begin with or something.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
As it often is,
Yeah, it is. And I think on average it took in those days 8 or 9 years to get a diagnosis. And, it was a weak positive, put it that way.
Yeah.
But I think what happens with a lot of people when, I'm sure you hear it a lot, I'm allergic to gluten or intolerant to gluten, when it's not celiac disease. There is, non-celiac as well. But I think that when you first pay attention to your diet, and whatever that may be, because I hadn't really paid attention, that whatever changes you make give you such a reward that one can become quite zealous about it.
Is that what you found? You
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And I also drank the Kool-Aid and thinking that, this was, people don't know about this. And basically, I didn't know about it.
Sure.
I was young and thought that if I didn't, no one did.
Yeah.
And, when I studied, what was interesting then, this was 1996 when I went back to college, my friends laughed at me. Because health food then was your health food store had, they had sawdust on the floor. Bear in mind, they used to have to buy the sawdust and scatter it. Do you remember those days?
I do.
That they would sell vitamin and nutrient supplements, but they were nearly always imported, and they were expensive because we didn't have a huge industry in those days. But they would also sell joss sticks and incense and tie-dye T-shirts. And so it was very much part of an alternative lifestyle.
Yes.
Obviously, that's changed now. And people laughed at me. And I had one or two people who said, you're kidding. You can't give up a good career to do that. You're mad. And I can't say that I thought, no, I know what I'm doing. I didn't. I just studied and worked hard and enjoyed it.
And they're not laughing now.
They're not laughing now.
Well,
No.
Good. Now, probiotics. As a doctor, I've become very aware that over the last 20 years that the science that has been applied to the study of probiotics has been incredible. There are so many people looking at, this prebiotic, this probiotic, so much hype, so much coverage in the press, but people are still trying to discover what people should take as a supplement if they've got gut issues related to their immunity. Is this one better than that one? Which, of the trillions of bacteria in our guts, which are the ones that should we be fueling and feeding? Where do you stand on this?
Well, there are two main families of the good bacteria. There's bifidobacterium and lactobacillus. And if you like putting it in the simplest terms, all of the ones that have those in the name, they're like first and second cousins. We know that through studies that one strain of lactobacillus does, in inverted commas, this, or will have this action, or likely to have this action. What we don't necessarily know is what that strain of bacteria will do when it's mixed with 5 different bacteria from either different types of lactobacillus or different types of bifidobacterium. We also don't know what will happen because, in the gut we have additional bacteria and we've all got slightly different. We may have 1 or 2 similar ones, but the spread of bacteria may be slightly different. And so I don't think it's a long shot. I think a lot of it is guesswork, and I don't think there's any harm in taking probiotics. I think that they generally do a lot of good. But I often liken it, and I mentioned something when I do consultations about gut health, is that it's like a giant slot machine. You pull the lever, and instead of, fruit and lucky 7 or whatever comes up, you've got this strain of lactobacillus and this strain of bifidobacterium, and maybe you've got a 75% concentration of this and a 10% concentration. We don't know what they do in combination.
Yeah.
So we have to take our best guess, which is of the probiotics, it's lactobacillus, bifidobacterium, and get a decent one, not, but just to decide on that, there are some very expensive probiotics. And a lot of the studies about those very expensive probiotics are actually funded by the probiotic company. And a lot of them, because the outcome cannot be measured and replicated, these are not gold standard studies. So they are often anecdotal. And so I often wonder, do we need to be spending £70 and do we have to take it for 3 months? And that's something I have many conversations about with customers.
There's some evidence, isn't there, that the elderly who had gastroenteritis, for example, can benefit from certain probiotics. And interesting, there's a fascination in fecal transplantation. The idea
on paper.
The idea that when we're born, if we're born through vaginal route, if we're breastfed, if we don't have antibiotics for the first year of life, our guts are always going to be healthier than someone who hasn't had those benefits. And once whatever you're born with stays with you for life after that first year.
Well, firstly, this is something I tell clients all the time, is that what you're dealing with here is being able to influence a small percentage, and we don't know what that percentage is.
Sure.
I still don't think that it's been established whether it's 10% or 80%, but that the amount of bacteria in the spread you have are largely dictated at birth, and you can alter them here and there. That doesn't mean that there's no benefit from taking probiotics, but I think I have to manage clients' expectations, and this is an interesting issue for me because I like to, I've got clients who've been coming to me for 20, 30 years, and I want to give them solid advice and manage so they understand what the outcome will be. A lot of people, when you get your advice online, you're expecting a transformation, because in order to get a lot of attention on TikTok or Instagram, whatever it may be, you have to make big claims. And in the real world, those claims set you up for some sort of failure, because you cannot if you expect something to happen and it doesn't happen, then that person is wrong, or rather than the fact that you're on the wrong track. I think that this is one of the issues with probiotics and actually supplements in general, that you're told that supplements will make a vast difference. And I think that what they do is make some difference, which is very valuable, but it's not, it's never going to be transformational. Transformational. Sometimes it will, but not always.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Now, you're highly qualified. How do you feel about this growth of people with very limited qualifications, if any, who espouse what they say on social media or on things like Instagram, TikTok, X?
I'm not that highly qualified. No, I mean, I studied, got my diploma, I was halfway through doing a master's degree after that. I then was asked to do, because I'm shallow and stupid.
This took years.
Yeah. And then I was halfway through doing a master's and I stopped because I was asked to do a 6-month filming thing. Yep. And I never started again because life became insanely busy. I'm not proud of that, but that's the way it is. However, I am extremely experienced. 20-something thousand clients, hundreds and hundreds of newspaper columns and articles and etc.
And lucky me. And highly researched.
Highly researched. I mean, I think I'm too thin-skinned to give bad advice.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't want it coming back on me, if you like.
And of course, we're all prone to that sort of criticism. But how do you feel about those who have done a weekends course or none at all?
None at all. I think when I first qualified, a lot of people who were very qualified in the industry were, because I was visible, I became very much a focal point of their disapproval. And I can understand that. And nothing I can do about that. There are new targets now, which are people who've done online courses for a weekend, etc., who call themselves a health coach or nutrition coach. My biggest worry is, firstly, they're not insured. So there's no comeback on what they say. Secondly, they make their money from consultations where they shouldn't be consulting people. When you're not fully qualified and you don't know what you're doing, you don't know where the boundaries are of what your expertise is. And so people, I've seen it time and time and time again, getting involved in areas where they aren't qualified at all, haven't even done a weekend course. I worry about this. And I think that if you go to someone who's inexperienced and not qualified, you don't know the difference because they're often articulate and they've got a big following. I can think of people instantly who've got 1 million followers, absolutely zero qualifications or responsibility as well. Often they sell supplements as well, or they give you a discount code for a supplement company, which really is a commission code because they get commission every time you use their discount code. That not everyone, but there's an awful lot of people like that. I worry because let's say you could have a complete recovery from your situation or a very significant outcome from doing solid work. You may get, say, 40% of that from following crappy advice. And it feels good to you. You're 40% better than you were. But you'll spend the rest of your life managing the situation with this supplement, etc., or avoiding this food when you don't need to. And I think that, healthcare providers in any form have a responsibility to get, obviously, the best outcome for the people they're working with, especially when people are paying you, but also just morally, if you like. Sorry to sound so superior. It's immoral to put somebody in a position where they're in their 30s or 40s where they have to take a supplement the rest of their life when they don't need to.
I agree. And there are so many faddy diets now. I mean, almost every day there's a new fad, which are extreme and could lead to nutritional deficiencies for some people if they're adhered to for too long.
Yes, and I think that they're unmanageable, but I think it taps in to an interesting concept, which is so many people feel guilty about their diet, that they should be healthy, they should be doing something else. So when they follow a plan that is rigid, that has lots of rules, when you follow it, you feel good about yourself. And when you fall off the wagon, whatever the language is, you feel bad about yourself. And I think, firstly, that's a miserable way to live your life. But I think that what I've seen online, and certainly is some of those fatty diets have become more extreme. And they're given new names and backed up with some research. So, I mean, I know I'll make myself unpopular, but look at fasting. When I was younger, when I'm 21, working in an office, can't remember what it was, if you had someone who came into the office who hadn't eaten since 6 o'clock last night, and they didn't eat until lunchtime. They didn't have black coffee. This is not a healthy relationship with food. Call it intermittent fasting, and now it's a healthy relationship. Not just healthy, but a researched healthy relationship. And I know that, I'm going to get people tell me that's not true. But why deny yourself the pleasure of eating? Why live like that? You don't need to live like that, because you can manage your food in a way that's not so extreme. And I think that it suits some people, not everybody. And I worry about if you have let's use fasting as an example, a small window of time to get your nutrients in, not just to manage your weight, to get your nutrients in, that it's possible to now be undernourished, yet be following what is on paper a healthy diet.
Do you think we should all still be eating 3 meals a day?
Yes, but I think of modest proportions. Certainly, if you look at GLP-1 medications, for a lot of people, this has been a wake-up call of how much they were eting.
We're talking about Mounjaro, we're talking about
Ozempic, etc.
Wegovy.
I think that first of all, huge fan of I think they are a godsend, and I think for the right people, absolutely. But the right people don't necessarily get them, and not the wrong people, but the other people who can get them, sometimes dishonestly, or by tweaking their results, or changing.
Fibbing about their height and weight.
Yes. I'm 19 stone and 2 foot nothing.
That's it, yeah.
But some of the online pharmacies, which are licensed, they're legal and licensed, are ask for photographic evidence of your body and a timed, date-stamped photograph of you standing on, or a video even of you standing on the scales, etc., so that your BMI is genuinely 30 or 35, or if there's any comorbidities, 27. But there are a lot that don't. And so a lot of people are taking them and not shouldn't be, but using them as a way of losing weight. They shouldn't be doing it, but they are doing it. And it's so lucrative. I can imagine the online pharmacists will be quite resistant to any changes.
Well, absolutely. And as you say, used appropriately, they're very effective. But also the dosage schedule should be followed. They should be monitored. But it's not a reason not to concentrate on lifestyle issues like exercise and healthy diet.
But if you have struggled with food and diet all your life, and now you aren't, having that food noise turned down must be just heaven. Because now, what I have a lot of clients, and I'm writing about this at the moment, I have a lot of clients who've taken it rightly or wrongly, who have lost a lot of weight, because I think there's an issue with dosage about GLP. I think that a lot of people, because there is a bigger dose, and it is you start on your 1 milligram or 2.5, whatever it may be, that there's almost like this is your starter dose, but coming up next is your 2.5. After that, there'll be 5 and 7 and 12, which means that your weight loss, the implication is that there's always another step to go. And I think that you've got to be very grown up about it and have a large degree of self-awareness to get to, let's say, your 5 milligrams and think, actually, this is fine. Because I think that it in some people it awakens the sleeping addict, which is, I could be eating less, or I should be taking 7.5, or I could be. And I think that a lot of the online pharmacies, and I've certainly seen this with clients, they forwarded me the emails saying it's time to move on, etc. So instead of your £155 a month, we want to charge you £195 a month for your next dose, which is 30% higher. Now, the problem, as you know, is that when we lose weight too quickly, we cannibalize our own muscles, sarcopenia, and we don't necessarily. We may weigh less, but our body composition may not be great, and also you're not nourishing yourself. So I think that we need. I think there will be a reckoning to do with the dose in the future, and I think that used properly, that Mounjaro et al., we will see them as a way to see food as not just good or bad, make me fat or thin, but for the other things it contains. I mean, there's I was just writing about this the other day, then if you look at an avocado and you just see that it's 320 calories and that's it, then there's a problem. You should look at a source of fibre, vitamin E, potassium, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And getting people to that stage is quite a job.
Yeah, people do look at things very simplistically, don't they? We've talked about being non-judgmental. We've talked about balance. Are there any food ingredients that you would really weren't there and didn't exist that are so bad for us?
There were, trans fats, for instance, but trans fats have been largely, they're just not used anymore to the same degree. I think there are some foods that have been demonized. Saturated fat, we need some, not much. I think, I suppose the obvious one is sugar. But again, I say that and it suits me. I love sugar. I think any ingredients, I'm going to say no.
Actually, numbers, colourings.
Do we use them that much anymore compared to? I suppose I'm so old. They've been. If I look at the quality of food from 30 years ago, you see, if you are having an unhealthy diet, you're going to have a lot of E numbers and preservatives within those ultra processed foods. Because I think that this section, the wellness crowd, I'm not being dismissive or diminishing them, are quite scathing about those things, but they don't really have many of them. And I think that this division, as I said, is becoming more pronounced. And I think that the people who are eating a different way, more ultra-processed foods, the idea is that if only they knew, they'd eat less of them. And I don't think that's the case.
No.
I don't think the idea is, because then you're setting yourself up for this lot clever, this lot stupid. That's not the case at all. No. And I think that we use a lot less preservatives and in good food than we used to.
Absolutely.
I think the E numbers, etc., are in that group.
So you remain passionate about the importance of good nutrition,
and more so the older I get.
Yeah, interesting. And where do you stand on alcohol? Do you like a nice claret?
I didn't drink for I through some very stressful years when towards the end of the food doctor, I was drinking too much. I don't mean blind drunk, nothing like that. But for me, I was drinking too much.
I think a lot of people were, yeah.
And I think it would be 2 glasses every night. So I thought, I'm going to stop. So I stopped for 9 years.
Oh.
And I became really proud of myself for stopping. And then after 9 years, I thought, why don't I drink? And so I started again, and now I have red wine, not that often, actually. So 2 or 3 times a week, and I really like it. And I have one glass. I'm taking a friend for dinner for her birthday tonight, and I'll have 1 glass of wine, and I'll really enjoy that.
To complement the food, of course.
Yes, of course. But I have no desire to drink more.
No.
But that's me. I still think we drink too much, and I still think it's seen as benign, and it's not.
No,
and I wish that, this is why I'm a bit judgy about things.
Moderation in everything.
And I think also after the 2nd or 3rd glass, who cares? Have dessert.
Absolutely.
Have it every night. Makes no difference.
Well, I'll drink to that. Thank you so much, Ian.
Very good to see you.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you. Don't forget, you can watch all my interviews on the Dr. Hilary Show YouTube page, including my recent conversation with Ed Balls.
It all goes back to being in the cabinet, actually. I didn't find out it was a stammer until I was already a cabinet minister.
So you didn't have it as a child?
Well, I did, but I didn't know what it was.
Okay.
And when I was in my teens, I would go to like the school debating society, and I really wanted to do it well. But sometimes I found it kind of hard to get the speech to come. Sometimes, and I thought, well, am I nervous? I don't feel nervous. But then through my kind of 20s and 30s, before I went into elected politics, I didn't have to do much public speaking. And so it wasn't really an issue. And but then when I got selected as a member of Parliament, I did my first Newsnight interview late at night down the line, which means, I'm in some car park in West Yorkshire talking to the interviewer in the studio, and hard for me to get the words to come. And when I was then a junior minister, I would regularly have these moments where I would kind of freeze like that, and I couldn't get the words to come out. And was it a breathing problem? Was I nervous? I learned things which would help me to be better. I like familiarity. I like to be able to imagine the place I was going to and feel like I'd been there before. I needed to be calm. But then in my first education questions, so I was the Secretary of State for Children, Schools and Families, doing my first questions in Parliament, and I had to read out some text, and I found it hard to read the text. And one of the Labour backbenchers really loudly, it was Gwyneth Dunwoody, said, he's supposed to be the Secretary of State and he can't even get his words out. And it kind of echoed round. And I went back to the department and said, this is such a problem. And a brilliant woman who worked with me called Francine Bates went off and came back 5 days later and she said, read this. And it was on the British Stammering Association website. She said, you've got a stammer. I said, I haven't got a stammer. I don't stammer. I think in my mind, I always thought a stammer was where you stammered because you couldn't manage to be fluent. Mm-hmm. But actually, loads of people with a stammer, including King George VI with his stammer, they have a stammer which is more like a block. It's called interiorized. So the analogy is an iceberg. There's a little bit of iceberg above the ocean, which people see, but not quite sure what it is. It doesn't really sound like anything. Underneath is this massive turmoil of the block. And if you don't know what to do about it, you just freeze. And that was what was happening to me.
Hit subscribe on YouTube now so you don't miss what's coming next. We'll continue the conversation about your health and focus on what truly matters to you. And for more information and show notes on all our programmes, go to drhilaryjones.com.